Hey, here I am again. Some snow on the ground. It's actually not snow, it's like big chunks of ice. I'll stop here at the ocotillo plants. There's like a little ocotillo garden, and that way you don't have to hear my heavy breathing. I do go every day out here somewhere. I really like it. Always something new on the trail. The light's different or a new flower's out. Animals. Animal poops. Lots of those. Look how cool the snow stuff is. I'm gonna guess that most of you who find this channel have probably heard of non-duality before. And I'm also gonna bet that you're pretty committed to it. Why are you committed to it? Because you've more than likely had an experience of who you are, of your true self. Here we go. Here's the ocotillos. So who had that experience? If it was an experience and it was temporal and it had a beginning and an end, is that really who you are? And are you trying to get back there? Back to that experience, that non-dual experience. So being contains everything in it, all experiences. It also contains your individual stream of consciousness. So the wave that's part of the ocean of being, the Kates and the Pauls and the Johns, all the individual streams. So there's being, there's consciousness, and then there's individual expressions or streams of consciousness. And then there's layers of experiences embedded within that and on top of that. So we may ask, why am I not awake yet? Why am I not enlightened yet, why do I still not see the world as non-dual, even though I know that that is the all-permeating reality? And okay, I will sit here because it's so great to be up here with you and I. You and I. Okay, I don't know if any of you heard of Nathan Gill. I really liked his expression of non-duality. And in one of his books, I think, he wrote that there was the realization that the loss of non-dual consciousness never actually happened. That simply what was going on was that there was the mesmerization of thought. So he was getting back to being mesmerized by thought. And so what he thought was the loss of enlightenment or the return of separation or the stuckness of not making it, was actually simply the consciousness getting mesmerized, becoming enthralled back into thinking. So when consciousness isn't doing that, when it's not locked up, or not even locked up, because it's never locked up, everything is free. Everything that could be is totally, radically free. So it's never actually stuck or locked up. But, when consciousness begins to heavily identify with and express in that individual stream of consciousness as Kate, and Kate's story, and Kate's life, and Kate's possessions, and Kate's desires, and Kate's goals, first off, that's what it's doing. And second of all, there are different, I guess, perspectives within the sea or ocean of being that are being experienced. So it's not that any one of them is wrong. You know, the desire to express Kate and to be Kate and to become whatever it is that Kate wants to be in any given moment is just simply one wave within a vast ocean, right? And there are many of those waves. So if the pervading wave is the wave of being, the wave of silence, the way of truth, the way of enlightenment, the way of peace, if that's what's expressing, that's no different or no better than Kate expressing, right? Because they are all one. They're all interconnected. And the sea of being, which I like this word right now, so I'm going to keep using that metaphor. The sea of being is the all-permeating substrate of everything else. So you see how they're interconnected and they can't actually be separated, because you couldn't have one without the other. You couldn't have the subject of Kate without the object of consciousness, and you couldn't have either of those without the backdrop or the back screen of being itself. You need all three. You need all three. So whatever aspect is being experienced or fractured out or expressed, whatever perspective it is that is being illuminated, is the one, is the way, is the truth in that particular expression. Okay? Okay, I'm back. So I was going to say another thing, that if being is still attracted to that individual stream of consciousness or Kate, and the energy's going there, don't try and block it by forcing it to go back to its source, because there's an intelligence behind that movement. You know, like if being is still moving into an expression of the illusion of separation in the form of Kate, meaning like the energy is still wrapped up in that, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It's not a mistake and it's not an error. And so if you're still dealing with a heavily conditioned system and body and a heavy thinking process, don't sit there listening to non-duality trying to pacify that energy and force it into dissolution, because that's actually resistance. That's going to cause the opposite effect, and you'll end up with more, even heavier conditioning and heavier thinking coming up. So, and I've walked this path. I'm singing to you from a path I've walked, a pathway I've been on for many years. So if there's still conflict in relationships, lack of clarity around finances, work, and all that stuff, non-dual concepts aren't going to help you. Like, they may feel good, and they do feel good, and there's nothing wrong with that if that's arising. But be aware of the fact that expression of an individual you, of a unique and perfect blueprint of your own individual being, is important and a healthy, and like if you're on this path anyway, you're most likely going to be drawn to a healthy expression of that individuation. You know, so it may make sense that you're reaching out for therapy, for psychology, for inner work. It doesn't mean that you're back in your spiritual identity and going the opposite way. It just means you're in the flow of that which is moving towards wholeness, you know, on that level, in that expression, on that particular point of the spiral. You're just moving towards more wholeness. And if you're on a non-dual path, like, that is singularly the result of entering this pathway or this gateway. You know, it's that movement towards wholeness. So the body and the system is going to try and do that. But it has to go through that portal of the suffering and the muck and the ickiness of what's still there, lying unseen, lying drenched in resistance and fear. Okay, you can't avoid that. I know we want to pretend like we can. You know, and it's okay if it's not your time to turn around and look and open your eyes and see it clearly. It's okay if that's not where you're at in the spiral. That time will come too. That time will come too. Ooh, my arm's hurting because I fell the other day and my shoulder's a little sore. So I have to hold it in the other arm. Okay, I'm going to try and actually hike to my favorite spot by the river and maybe drop a quick note there. And then I'll send this out. Mwah. See you in a minute. So your flow is the flow of being. Whatever your flow is, that's the truth. That's reality. That's enlightenment. That's awakening. And what you are is not a state. It's not a level. It's not a point of reference or a perspective. It's not two. Not you and what's happening. You could say it as you and what's happening. You as what's happening. Not two. But you already knew that. Mwah.